rocking a revolving door.
Hello, I'm Gata the Catgirl here with a new video for you. You may be wondering why a Catgirl doesn't really have a girly voice, but that's because I'm actually 4 cats in a girl costume. The English language. It is a Westermanic language that was first spoken in early medieval England and is now a global bridge language. At least we've heard it, we've used it, we've experienced something involving it. For the most part, everyone has at least been exposed to it in one way or another. Unfortunately, this does not mean it is a good language. English is a stupid language. I've always said this, and no one has ever really shown me how it isn't a stupid language. I've even had people get defensive and try to argue about it, but most of the time they only know English, and so that's really the only thing they know. Linguistics has always been a point of interest to me. I've studied 5 languages academically, and a couple others in my pastime. And I can tell you that English is by far the most complicated one out of them. This is of course in the perspective of someone who wants to learn English as a second language, who has the basis of another language already. As a primary language, most of these complications aren't even noticed because you're raised with them. Let's go over 8 reasons why English is a dumb language. Number 1. Inconsistencies. Most of the problem is that it's such an adaptable language. Excuse me. It steals its words from every other language. Another one. This sounds like a great thing, but all it really does is complicate things further. Languages have set rules for conjugation and pronunciation. Stealing words that conflict with some of these rules kind of dooms the language. I'm sure you can argue.
But Gata, that's an exception word. The rest of the language is consistent enough, so you can't really say that.
Oh, but I can. Because it isn't. Let's use the I before E except after C as an example. It's a pretty standard and simple rule.
Except it isn't.
It's an invalid rule to all these words because reasons? English words basically have their own backstory that can be tracked back to other cultures and languages, which explains why a lot of them are spelt the way they are. Hamburgers are beef, not ham. Sweet rolls aren't made from bread, nor are they sweet. French fries are not French. Moreover, English muffins are not English. We park in driveways, but drive in parkways. A package by car is a shipment, but by ship it's cargo. Why do our noses run, but our feet smell? There are legitimate answers to each of these examples, but none of them are actually important, and they're not really going to help anyone learn the language. It's more of a matter of curiosity than functionality. And foreign words forced into the language are words such as like head honcho, which is Japanese, savvy, which is Spanish, foyer, or as the Americans like to say, foyer, is French. Brainwash even comes from a literal translation of a Chinese word. Alcohol comes from the Arabic. English has pretty loose rules when it comes to adopting words. Number 2. Similar, but totally different. I often feel like English is like my workplace. People will spontaneously come up with great ideas and try to enforce them as protocol, but they neglect to inform anyone. Meanwhile, others are trying to do the same thing with different protocols. This results in conflicting protocols and mass confusion. Who decided that fat chance and slim chance are basically the same thing now? Or calling someone a wise guy versus a wise man are technically different too. You can be down for something, which would be the same thing as being up for something. Your alarm is going off when it's actually going on. You fill out a form by filling in space. You can see the stars when they are out, but when lights are out, it means you can't see them. Who decided that content meant happy, but contention is the opposite? Egregious can mean both bad and good. Chuffed can mean either delighted or annoyed. Nonplussed can mean confused and unsure how to react, versus unperturbed. Butt dial is something very different from a booty call. The term literally can also mean figuratively. It's one of the definitions now in the dictionary because people have been misusing it so much. Number 3. Types of English. English isn't confusing enough, so we're going to actually add different types of English. The most common Englishes would be Queen's English and American English. The reason for this is because there was a man named Noah Webster, yes, the Webster who created the Webster dictionaries. Noah Webster was a jerk. I'm just gonna upfront say that now. After the American Revolution, he was xenophobic, I guess, and decided that the USA should have nothing to do with England at all, and so he intentionally rewrote the dictionaries. No one really thought to correct him or whatever. He literally rewrote the British dictionaries, and for whatever reason they just kind of ran with it. This is ignoring the fact that everyone else in the world was already using the British versions, and to this day still. Because of this, you can say things like, spelt is spelled in any nation outside the USA, but within, spelt isn't spelled, but spelled. Now, I'll be the first one to admit this isn't really a strong reason to say that English is a dumb language. Technically, all languages have dialect differences, but at least most languages don't rewrite the dictionaries because... America! Number 4. Homonyms and homographs. Homonyms are words that sound the same, but mean different things. Homographs are words that are spelt the same, but have different meanings. There are technically branches out for each to be more specific, such as words that are spelled the same but pronounced differently as well, but none of that is particularly necessary to the point. It feels like their entire purpose is to make things confusing and to be ineffective when you're trying to convey a message. The wound was wound up tight in a bandage. The wind was too strong to wind my watch. I want to present a present at this present time. The bear was bare. Will Smith? Will Smith? 2 students, James and John, were given a grammar test by their teacher. They were asked which is the correct use of this sentence, had or had. The teacher went over their answers. James, while John had. Had a better effect on the teacher. Yes, English can be weird. It can be understood through tough, thorough thought, though. I can already hear people say,
But Gata, English isn't the only language with homonyms.
this is true. Many other languages use homonyms, but they aren't nearly as bad as English. We pretty much have limitless different ways to convey the same message, given the extensive amount of words that we have. With an extensive amount of words and only so many syllables that can be pronounced, that means we're going to have to recycle. So many more are going to be looking and sounding the same as each other.
For no good reason.
Number 5. Singular and plural. The common rule is placing an S at the end to make a word plural. Putting an S at the end means there's more than one. But not if the word already ends with an S. Then ending a word with 2 S's just kind of looks silly. Instead, if it ends with just an S, then it's now an ES. It's pretty simple enough. And this is exactly why goose is geese, ox is oxen, mouse is mice, moose is moose, life is lives. Pants are already plural for some reason despite being technically singular. Pair of pants, despite there only being one pant. I don't know. And that's not even bringing up possessive yet. Possessive means it belongs to the noun that you are talking about. To indicate that, you add an apostrophe S. Unless it already ends with an S, then you simply add an apostrophe at the end, and it pronounces the same as an ES. This raises the question, if boss, plural, is bosses, and if boss, possessive, is also bosses, would then plural and possessive of bosses become bosses? Bosses? Number 6. Emphasis. To communicate clearly when you are speaking in English, it's important to stress the correct syllables in each word. This is called word stress, which means pronouncing one syllable with greater emphasis or stress than another syllable. In English, you can change the entire meaning of your sentence depending on the word that you stress. I didn't take the test yesterday. 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 These are all the same sentence. They're spelt the same way and with the same words, but with different meanings. Many other languages stress their words too in a similar manner. But here's a set system to complicate English stress even further for you. We stress the first syllable of most 2-syllable nouns, example, climate, knowledge, and two-syllable adjectives, such as spacious. Secondly, we stress the last syllable of two-syllable verbs, examples like require and decide. Thirdly, we stress the second to last syllable of words ending with IC, examples aesthetic or geographic, and words ending with SION or TION, examples extension, retribution. And lastly, we stretch the third from the last syllable of words that end with CY, TY, PHY, and GY, examples like democracy, uncertainty, geography, radiology, and words that end with AL, examples exceptional, critical. Got it? Okay. Most people don't really think about it if they already know English, because it's something they just kind of grew up with and absorbed. But it can be a lot to take in. You could be saying all the correct words and pronouncing them perfectly, but you might still be getting funny words due to the incorrect stressing. I require democracy. Number 7. This. Laid rhymes with paid, but not said. Said rhymes with bread, but not bead. Bead rhymes with lead, but not lead. Number 8. The alphabet. For the most part, alphabets universally make sense. Japanese letters have a set sound for each letter. There's no exceptions. The letter ka will always sound like ka. Zu will always sound like zu, with a minor exception if it's tiny, but that's changes the letter entirely. It's no longer zu. But I digress. English has no established rule for what letters should sound like. C sounds like K, and sometimes S. K is silent if there's an N after it most of the time. Why do we even bother using the letter K then if it can be fulfilled by the letter C and more? X is another pointless letter. At the start of a word, it sounds like a Z. And yes, I said Z, not Z.
Because we don't like the Webster.
Elsewhere, the X sounds like a KS sound. It can easily be omitted entirely. PH is F, because why not? Philippines and Filipino are spelled differently to each other for reasons. Now, diphthongs are one thing, but these are consonants. A diphthong is a combination of two vowels to make a single different vowel sound. But again, these are consonants. There is no good reason for so many non-vowels to fluctuate in sound so much. Silent letters in general serve no legitimate purpose whatsoever. MB at the end of a sentence is just an M. KN at the beginning is just an N, as previously mentioned. PS is often an S. PT is just a T. PN is just an N. Now, if GH can sound like P from hiccup, OUGH can sound like O, as in dough, BHTH can sound like T, as in phthisis, EIGH can sound like A, as in neighbor, TTE can sound like a T, as in gazette, EAU can sound like O, as in plateau, then this means potato can be spelled like potato. Would you like a roasted potato? I could go on, but I think I can only beat a dead horse so long until it becomes a big mess of cadaver juices all over the room. Oh geez, that was a really gross analogy. Again, the English language for you. Being gross. So that's the English language in a nutshell. It's really dumb. Like, comment, and subscribe if you agree. Also like, comment, and subscribe if you disagree. If you're indifferent, also like, comment, and subscribe. You should like, comment, and subscribe.